And now, our special guest this morning, ladies and gentlemen, is Martin Bell! Welcome back, sir. How are you? Good. Now, the veteran war reporter, of course, famously won a seat in Parliament after beating sleazy Tory MP Neil Hamilton in the 1997 election. Staying good to his word, Martin served just one term as independent MP for Tatton, Cheshire. The seat's now held by George Osborne, isn't it?
It is indeed.
But politics remains Martin's passion, as his new book here, A Very British Revolution, tells the story of MPs' expenses over the years, as well as providing a manifesto for cleaning up politics, because it still needs to be cleaned. A six-point plan.
My dream, actually, was to have called... I had a better title for this book. I wanted to call it Swindler's List. But they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me. But that's what it's about, you know. I honestly think, Matthew, we cannot go on as we have been. People are quite unhappy. I mean, even you understand this, don't you? You certainly do. Yes.
I do.
We're really upset. People are talking...
Has anything actually changed since the expenses scandal began?
Well, it's gone a bit quiet, but trust me, it's going to come back, because so many of these miscreants have yet to be removed, and if they're not removed by their parties, we can remove them.
Which leads on to this thing I've read about you sponsoring independent MPs.
Well, I'm not sort of sponsoring them. Sometimes I try and persuade people not to stand where they don't have a chance. But where one of these miscreants hasn't been deselected, there are places where ordinary people, well known in their communities on a sort of local hero model, could stand at the next Parliament. And I think we're so angry that this could have a real effect. At least I hope so. Because otherwise we carry on as we have been, and you know, they just loot the public purse. And
you're working with Terry Waite on this, is that right?
Yeah. Well, Terry and I actually go back a long way. Terry should have been the MP for Tatton, because they were looking for someone outside politics in '97. But he turned it down, and he comes from there. He turned it down on the grounds he'd already served one 4-year term as a hostage, and you can work out the rest. He's a lovely man, and he may stand himself. He may.
Esther Ranson, is she going to be one of yours?
Well, she's certainly going to have
one of yours. It's
well,
not really fair,
no, I don't.
Independent.
Nobody owns Esther but Esther. She takes her own advice. But I think she's going to go ahead in Luton South, and she's... And, you know, the fun thing about Esther, there are not many politicians with first-name recognition. There's Ken, there's Boris, and now there's going to be Esther.
Ken and Boris, I thought we were going to get to Barbie again then for a moment.
I was wondering, what about Matthew, you see?
Oh, well...
You'd vote for him, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Do you know what? I can't imagine anything worse than sitting in Parliament with someone. But what... You did your one term. What was your primary consideration? Was it to look after the people of Tatton? Was it to go in there and just be an independent voice within Parliament? What was it you wanted to achieve?
First of all, I wanted to achieve the assisted departure of somebody who thought I shouldn't be an MP.
Right.
And a lot of people agreed with me, and it was a lot of the Tories as well. Then I could look after the people, and every vote I had was a free vote. It was quite lonely because, you know, I was my own foreign affairs spokesman, social security spokesman. I was my own chief whip, for heaven's sake. But it was, a lot of MPs were jealous because every vote was a free vote. And you could actually do what your constituents wanted, not what the party wanted.
When you say a lot of MPs were jealous, that's quite encouraging because it suggests that actually, despite the confines of party politics, there are people out there that have consciences that want to be heard. What percentage of MPs are decent, fine men and women who want the best for this country, and what percentage will do anything their whips tell them to do?
I used to think it was sort of 30% dishonest and 70% honest. Then I thought it was 50-50. I think I'd say at least 40% of MPs are honest, decent, hard-working people who have not fiddled their expenses. That leaves several hundred on the other side.
Did you frighten the life out of them when you walked in there, then? Was it like, oh, no, he's not part of the club?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, no, actually, yeah, because I'm not part of the club, and that's why it was a little bit lonely, but they were also very kind to me, because at that time they didn't see me as a threat to the system. They saw me as an engaging oddity. I think independents are now seen as a threat to the system, so I expect to get a lot of... I think it's time for the old flak jacket again. You could have been the first person with any principles walking in there since Guy Fawkes, couldn't you?
There's the Catholic in you coming out.
You know, he'd make a...
He would be outstanding. He would be outstanding.
Lots of seats in Manchester, you know, up for grabs.
Well, you know,
He's standing
I'll
as
look
mayor.
into
He's
it.
put himself forward as mayor.
Well, I think Manchester deserves a mayor, and I only did it because I thought, well, somebody should do it. The ideal one would have been the late Tony Wilson. He'd have been a great mayor of Manchester, wouldn't he? You know, but...
Well, you might nominate Sir Alex, actually. He wouldn't be bad. With half the city.
No, because we don't want to mess up Man United just for a mayor.
No. What about you, Martin? Would you go back? I mean, there's Hazel Blears, I know, is on the hit list. Margaret Moran. Were there any of those? Would you be tempted to?
I have actually spoken at a Hazel Must Go meeting, and it was very lively.
I can imagine it was.
People are really fired up there, but I think you need somebody local. You know, I'm the oldest person here, but I'm 71. You wouldn't vote for a 71-year-old, would you?
Yeah.
You would? Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. 70 is the new 50. And 50 sounds like, you know...
So you must be about 15.
I love this guy. It's great to have you here. It really is. And anybody who's interested in the history of expenses more than anything else, it's some fantastic facts and information there. It really is. It is a scandal. It is a scandal. Anyway, let's see if we can put the world to rights on the show this morning.